Item 2.1, I will call the Paris Union High School District Special Board Meeting to order at 6:16 PM. Item 3.1, revision, adoption, ordering of agenda, October 23, 2024. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'm just going by the paper. Do we need to establish a quorum?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that for the record before we move on, if you're okay with that? Okay. Roll call, Mr. Nelson?
Here.
No trustee Vallejo? Trustee Stafford?
Here.
Trustee Campos?
Here.
And myself, Edward Garcia, present. All right, going back to item 3.1, revision, adoption, ordering of agenda, October 23rd, 2024. We have a motion by Mr. Nelson and a second by Mr. Stafford. Is there any discussion? No? See none? Please vote. Item 3.1 passes, 4 yes and 1 absent. Item 4.1, personnel, consideration, approval of job description for assistant superintendent, curriculum, instruction, and innovation services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Is that a yes?
Yeah, but I thought that wasn't going to be.
Questions, comments? Yeah. Oh, good point. Turn your microphones on, please, gentlemen. Me too. Do you need a moment before? we
Yeah,
go into
let's give
discussion?
us a moment here, a minute or so first.
Not a problem.
Make sure I'm looking at the right.
That's the CII one.
Exactly.
This is the one we added LCAP to?
That's the one that we added.
Okay.
I would just,
So-
let-
Okay, so this was the associate assistant superintendent position.
No, we said we didn't want to associate.
Right. I agree, but that's what I'm saying, this was that one.
Yes, but we renamed it, retitled it and everything else, but essentially that's the one we're going to be putting out of business with the two of these, with pupil services.
Right, no, I just wanted to know which one
Yes,
this was.
that's the one we have agreed to at the beginning of October,
Let me see, because there's, okay, so there's,
because we wanted to add LCAP to it, we wanted to change the title.
oh, so
This is
let me see.
October 3rd.
yes,
That's
why
the
I'm
Schedule
putting that.
260, okay, so hold on. So there's one that has Schedule 250, Schedule 260.
250 was the old one.
This is the old one, it's the top one for 2014.
No, I know. Yeah, that's what I,
Thank you.
so Schedule 260.
All the new superintendent positions are now 260
So it's like this. This is how, no, in that deck right here,
Oh,
it's like
okay.
this. Right here.
I just gotta find mine, 'cause I have notes on mine.
Oh,
I just know, realize it says 250 on that, the 260.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, hold on, the 260.
so certificated would be 260 and then classified would be 250?
Okay, hold on, so. So cert,
250?
250 is classified, 260 is.
Okay, I did say that, okay.
wait, no, 250's certificated.
I misheard it, reverse that.
Two,
Did not know driving
50
to
is
India was
certificated and the 260 is classified.
Thank you.
That's the one, okay.
would have to be different because of the.
And which one was, okay, so which one was Bob on?
He was on the 250.
So he was on the,
He was also on 250 because that was the old,
so he was certificated? So have we ever had anybody that was 260, that was classified?
Right, right.
For Ed Services? No, I understand that, but I'm looking, so the 260 one, the title is a superintendent, assistant superintendent of educational services, and it says that's the classified one.
that's the one we're replacing. That's the one that we approved 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. That was certificated, but we're replacing with pupil services and.
No, I know, no. Well, right now,
This is classified.
put all that off to the side. I need to make sure I understand how these educational services are set up, because I'm completely confused. So this is the salary schedule. Okay, so CII,
You see this one that's approved in 2014, revised 2019?
yeah,
Okay, that's the one that Bob Ruff was on.
okay, that was a certificated one.
Yes.
Okay, so that's Bruff, okay.
You have the right date on
This
that?
one that says
250.
revised September 23rd and approved October 3rd, we just approved 3 weeks ago. This is the one that we revised to include the LCAP and a few other.
And this is considered classified.
This is, 260 would be considered classified, yes.
Why?
Which one was on top?
Yes, yeah.
Or October 3rd?
May 21st was on top, yeah.
So then why are we having the discussion? I know, so that's why I'm confused. So I'm completely confused as to why we're even bringing this, why is this even in the pile?
Okay, can I explain that? Yeah,
Please.
because you ask for, to have the information available of the all BRAPS job description as an Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
But he was under certificated. They're stating that
Yeah.
260 is classified. That's what I'm.
Ms. Maribel, yes, that's an important, I didn't even know curriculum and instruction being classified, Maribel? Ms., yeah, if you can please approach.
Well, right now, we should be discussing the CII.
Exactly, yeah,
Right now, that's the point we're talking about right now.
yes.
So we use, sorry, Mr. No.
Is this question on this one, or is it in general?
Is this the old associate?
If this item is about, Dave, can you repeat that to the president, please?
My bad. Let me turn my microphone on. Okay. For right now, we have a first and a motion and a second on the item in question right now, which is Curriculum Instruction Innovation Services. So this is the contract we should be talking about right now.
Affirmative.
So he was asking about Ed Services, which is essentially what we are retiring right now, this particular position, if we approve the job descriptions of these two. We are essentially putting this out to pasture after 3 weeks and essentially replacing it with these two. So,
Right.
do you have any questions on CII is my question.
Yes.
So Joe's position before Assistant Superintendent of Technology Innovation Services was classified. What we were asked to do was to bring in some of the ed services duties into Joe's job description and add curriculum and instruction. So because it was already classified, that had not been changed. And so this still is Joe's position of Assistant Superintendent Technology Innovation is still in here. We added in the curriculum and instruction that was taken away from the ed services and to make into two, to the pupil services and special ed, and then the curriculum, instruction, and innovative services. So because Joe was already classified, that's why it's classified. However, Joe does hold his administrative credential, so it can be certificated.
Okay, so there's no requirement that it's a classified position. It can be a certificated
It can't be a
position.
certificate. It was, like I said, because his was already classified. When we added in the additional duties, we just didn't change that, but we can change that. That can be a change if that's what the board would like.
So I know we're talking about this job description, but how does this impact the other job description for ed services? That's what I'm trying to understand, because ed services deals with curriculum. Are they going to be participating with curriculum?
Well, according to this job description, this position would handle, the majority would handle curriculum and instruction. And the other job description, which you'll get to in a minute, is supposed to handle pupil services and special education.
Not curriculum.
It would support the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum,
Hold on,
Instruction,
let
and
her finish,
Innovation.
please. Can she finish?
They're split, but it is split.
Yes.
And special education, yes, sir. And splitting it.
Right.
So that's what this is doing, is
Okay,
splitting
so I
it.
have a question. You said we. Who's we? Who was a part of the discussion to make these changes?
Dr. Rao and I. Dr. Rao gave me the direction, which is what, he gave me the direction to move these duties into two different areas. He wanted to make the Joe's position, add the curriculum and instruction, of course, keeping technology and innovation, and split into the other one being Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Services, and then adding special education, even though the title just says Pupil Services. So in the one that would be for Joe, he would be taking on the curriculum instruction. He would also be taking on like the LCAP. So there would be certain provisions. Again, one ed services position I would have is being split into two. Not two new positions, because Joe is assuming some of those duties, and then a new person would be assuming the special education and pupil services only. So again, that one ed services is being split up.
So did you review any other school district that has that?
I did. Dr. Rao asked me to look at Harupa, and I reviewed the director, assistant superintendent of pupil services.
Okay, so we're not discussing pupil services. We're discussing curriculum, instruction, innovation. Is there anybody else that has that? Because here's my concern. I've looked at several job descriptions surrounding districts. I've looked at Val Verde. They don't have a position anywhere near it. They all have it. They have an ed services. Moval doesn't have it. Anaheim Union High School District has ed services, doesn't have this position. In other words, ed services is always what takes control over the LCAP and the finances. Harupa, and you also got to understand, Harupa is a K-12 school district. They have an ed services, and they also have pupil services. We would be Santa Ana Unified School District. They have ed services. Murrieta, ed services. Temecula, ed services. Lake Elsinore, ed services. And I think I mentioned Alberta already. So what I'm saying is, why would we eliminate ed services if everybody else has?
I'm going to have to ask you to ask Dr.
I can
Rao,
answer,
because
I
that was
can
his
answer that.
direction.
Yes.
That's okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Trustee Campos, Trustee Stafford, Trustee Vallejo, Trustee Nelson, and Trustee Garcia. Excellent question. During the last board meeting, I explained to all of you that I was proposing a restructuring of the way we do business here, because I identified needs of our students to improve in student achievement. And one of the ways to do it is to focus in instruction, to have a laser focus on supporting our teachers to implement the best instructional strategies, first best instruction, and the best possible instructional strategies to create engaging classrooms where the students want to be in the class, where they want to learn. And I expanded saying this is going to help also with attendance. The students are going to be there. How this position came about. Mr. Williams is an assistant superintendent of technology and innovation that I don't know how many districts have that, by the way, right? I don't think too many districts have that one also. He was focusing on instruction through technology. Instruction through technology. Then we have educational services doing the traditional instructional process. So we have technology coaches and we have instructional coaches. When the real job of the technology coaches, besides supporting students and staff and teachers with the technology elements, they were focusing on instruction too. So my proposal to you was, why don't we combine those? And we move instructional technology with the traditional instruction. The coaches that are instructional techs become instructional coaches, a combination, and we have a laser focus to support our students learn mathematics, English, science, social science, the core classes, increase student achievement. That, by the way, during this year, with the support of RCOE, the focus is to help our students improve in mathematics. Our students, they have the capacity to do a wonderful job. Our teachers also, I know that they are going to do a wonderful job, but we need just to modify the approach and have laser focus on instruction. At the same time, even though we are not considering pupil services, but it's related to educational services was overseeing instruction, special ed, discipline, attendance, and parental involvement, a lot of things that I don't want to say deviated from instruction, but they were too many things. So with the proposal of separating that, right, and having somebody to focus on instruction, that's what we would like to do, to support our students, to support our teachers in order to do that. And that's true. Other districts, they don't have that position. So in the same way that they don't have technology and innovation, they don't have it, and we did, or we are having it right now, right? So I didn't look at another districts because their needs might be different. Maybe they haven't thought about it. Well, that was my idea that I presented based on these 2 months that I look at the data and I identify the specific needs of our students. And with my belief that our students have the potential to succeed with the support of our teachers, then why not focusing on supporting our teachers' instruction so our students can excel?
Okay, so a couple things. Number one, I don't think we've ever taken the focus off of instruction. I think to make that statement is basically saying that Val Verde, Moval, Murrieta, Temecula, obviously, of course, have higher test scores. Well, I know Murrieta and Temecula do, and they're not taking that approach. And so for me, my concern is we're deviating from something that nobody else is doing. Now, I understand our move to make him in charge of the assistant superintendent of technology. I forgot what his technology and innovation. That I do agree. That's where we're different. I think what we're doing here is putting ourselves in a situation that nobody else is doing. I'm okay having his position where it's at, adding duties to it, because I think he brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to it, but nobody else has this. And so my concern also, when I look at the job descriptions, his previous position has no financial involvement. In other words, he doesn't control any of the funds, LCAP or any of that other stuff. And now he's getting all control of it. That concerns me. Now, if we left it the way it was, and here's one of the other things that kind of bothered me with, if you look at Bob Bruff's he didn't even have LCAP on there, because that was all in business services. Why business services overseeing that money, I have no idea, because I've looked at that job description as well. But I think this is dangerous because we're completely shifting the money from, right now it's at business services. Somehow it should have always been in educational services, but it wasn't. Because if you look at Bob Ruff's job description, it wasn't on there. He wasn't in charge of LCAP. Now, we said we were gonna move that in there, and we never moved it in there and got it back to see what that job description was. So when we were interviewing for this position, we were interviewing a job for assistant superintendent in ed services, not pupil services. It was ed services. And they were gonna control the LCAP and a lot of the funding. So I see a lot of issues and problems with this job description that I can't support. But not only that, there's no statistical data that us venturing off and doing this is gonna be successful. There's none there. We have no evidence of that. We would be the only school district who does not have an ed services assistant superintendent, the only one. I'm not comfortable with that. And that's why I want to make sure that when we're looking at this stuff, we're looking at it completely. Now, does it mean that we can't amend his position to have some oversight on LCAP? Yes, we can. As a matter of fact, I want him to be working with ed services so that they can control the LCAP, they can control the funding so that it's laser focused on the instruction. That I agree with. But we're shifting funding to a completely new position that nobody has. That to me is a little,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
that's a little concerning. Because everybody else is running all that through LCAP, all the LCAP through ed services. And we would be the only school district who does not have ed services. Even Harupa, they have business services, ed services, HRD, pupil services, and you also got to remember they're a K through 12. So I can understand adding the pupil services to any of these K-12s. And most places that have pupil services, it's under the title of student services. In Temecula, they have an assistant superintendent of student support services. They also have educational support services. We would be the only one veering away from that, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Mr.
I
President.
mean, I don't know if anybody else,
Sorry, I came late, so I'm very confused, but did we all agree for this to make this change? So like, what was the change since then?
well, that's just it. So we were supposed to have change of educational, because remember before when the associate position came up? We shot that down. But at that time, we had asked to get some of that information blended with Bob's old position to create LCAP oversight, because we noticed there was no LCAP oversight. Now, that never happened. No, it was never presented to us.
October 3rd. Yes, sir.
The,
Second page. It's in the second page. And it's
which
on the
one's that?
second
The
page.
260?
Yeah. On the white paper? Right here.
Okay, now, hold on. So
Are you on that one?
it's 260, right?
No, that's not it.
Oh, the classified one. Okay.
Sir, I will say that I'm looking at this and the salary schedule should be 250, but the one on October 3rd, as Mr.
You're
Nellison's
right.
saying,
That's
does
the
have
classified one
LCAP.
that we were saying?
Well, it should be, as you're saying, sir, it should be salary schedule 250. So that I will own is an error there. It should be 250, but
So
the
they
ed-
should be swapped?
but no, but everything else is correct. It's just the salary schedule should be 250, but it does have LCAP, which you had asked to be added, and it
Right,
was added, yes,
right,
sir.
and I do see
On the
that.
one on October 3rd, yes, sir.
As the primary?
Yes, sir.
So now that, okay, so,
That one was changed.
We approved that, like I said, 3 weeks ago.
okay,
Yes.
so that should have been brought forward. So personally, I think we're put in a very difficult situation here because the whole purpose was to hopefully appoint someone to a position with a job description, but we don't have that. And so right now, we're looking at a job description that we approved that we never considered. So we're considering, and we're not talking about the pupil services, but we're discussing the curriculum, instruction, and innovation, but that, if we approve that, that means we have to knock out assistant superintendent of educational services. And so right now, that for me is very confusing. We should have had all these brought together, had a discussion, and then pick which one we thought was the best job description to then make an informed decision as to whose titles go where and what responsibilities. Right now, this is like extremely confusing. Not only that, but it's unprecedented. There's nobody doing it. And that's a major concern.
What would you recommend we do, what course of action would you recommend?
Well, I can't support this. So obviously, we would have to make a determination on this, go back to the well, and then look at these job descriptions to figure it out. Now, this one is going to coincide with pupil services because they're kind of a 2-in-1. And this one, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Innovation Services isn't something that is a front burner issue. In other words, right now, we are missing an ed services position. This doesn't fulfill that. And unless.
So you're saying we should fill the ed services first and then work
Uh,
on it?
Well, yeah, we shouldn't even be discussing this one. I mean, we should be concentrating on that, and that would be what that is comparing it to is pupil services. But I understand the marriage that was made here in the two, but I don't, we never really considered this one.
You do have that one that is still approved. I do want to say, because you said we don't have one that's
Was
approved.
approved.
So
That
we
one
can
is still,
approve
appro-
this
you can,
today,
you have
make
it
a
already
motion?
approved.
Okay,
You
well,
have
it's
it.
already, the ed services is already approved. That's already what's on the books.
Okay.
Okay, we made that
Now I get it.
we made that revision 3
We
weeks
have to
ago.
vote on these and then.
We would,
motion
okay,
can be made.
and I'm kind of confused here because you were in the closed session with all of us last week when our superintendent brought this forward and said, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And we all 5 of us said, that sounds like a good idea, bring us back the job description so we can take a look at it and we can approve it. That's what this meeting is. So, I mean, do you not remember us having that conversation last week is my question.
I do, but I've also.
There's also information that wasn't there. We didn't
Yeah.
know what was on the job description.
And I know, and they had to be approved, they had to go through the lawyer, the lawyers had to check them out, and I get that.
didn't realize these were, when we were proposing that these were coming up for action. I thought they were coming up for a discussion. But I guess we can do it now. I mean, I guess we can discuss it.
We've opened the item.
Yeah.
If you want us to talk
Yeah.
about it, this is the time to do
Yeah.
it. And this is
So obviously, we have to take action on this one, because that's what's on the table.
Well, we have to take action on both of them because
Well, right now,
unless,
this is what we're discussing. We're discussing 4.1.
yes, the CII, yes.
Right,
Curriculum, Instruction, and Innovation.
right.
Any other questions for me? I'm right here if you have some.
Thank you.
Any more discussion amongst ourselves?
So your biggest thing about this is the fact that if we approve this and the pupil services, we'd be going away from an ed services title. All the job descriptions would be taken care of from that job description, just spread out between CII and pupil services. All the jobs will still be taken care of. It's just the title you're worried about right now. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
No, I heard more. I heard more
Okay.
about the LCAP being shifted over to the CII position.
Okay.
Rather than ed services. That's what I heard.
Okay,
And
well,
that is
LCAP mostly,
kinda concerning.
LCAP mostly has to do with curriculum and instruction.
Right.
Almost all
I'm
of
not
it.
opposed to that.
There's a few small things that aren't, but for the most part,
But
it's
it's a
part of
complete
curriculum.
shift over where he was saying no one has that experience right now, and that it would routinely be in ed services.
Which
I-
would be,
I
which would
see.
be Mr. Mr. Williams would be
see what
taking this
you're saying.
position essentially.
Yeah, no, I see.
So-
I'm just capturing what he said.
Uh-huh, okay.
Yeah, and so that is my concern, is that we completely shifted the financial responsibilities from one area to another. And,
Which we've already done. We have shifted it from business services to ed services currently. That's what we did 3 weeks ago.
okay, so,
But we don't have an assistant superintendent of ed services yet, which I will grant you on that.
right, well, but not only that, but I guess I didn't know we had done it, but did we remove that from business services? I'm just telling you what I've read and what I read in that job description, but we're not, that's a completely separate thing. I'm just bringing up that as part of the concern
Okay.
on how everything it went from like here to instead of here to here. Right. And it's like, whoa, that's a stretch for me.
Okay.
And it,
Okay, I hear you, and I would like to get the opinion of the person who would be taking the job and how comfortable he is dealing with LCAP and how much experience he's had dealing with the LCAP. So if you don't mind, I would like Mr. Williams to come forward and just give us some information about what his background would be and how comfortable he
So
is.
to clear the air, I am responsible for a multi-million-dollar budget. My budget currently is extremely complicated with E-rate funding, project management, government contracts, public works. My funding is kind of three buckets. The technology department budget, the Scholar Plus teaching and learning budget, which handles focus on instruction, and the other category, why am I forgetting that one? Replacement refresh, right? So my budget is extremely complicated as it is in my current job description. My experience with LCAP is I used to work at Ed Services. I was a technology coach at Ed Services. I was a part of the LCAP process when Marcy was here, when the state set out the 8 or 9 goals, and we put them into 4 goals, just like other districts. I was in on the ground floor with that. Just to clear the air, if we're talking about the building of Ed Services has always been responsible for LCAP. We can talk about job descriptions, and we can talk that it wasn't written in Bob's job description, but the building of Ed Services has been primarily responsible for LCAP. Diane Martin was kind of the one behind it. Her boss was behind it. So to be clear, that's not shifting. The location of Ed Services as a building is where the LCAP was created. My focus, and I can be more than happy to share you a slide deck that I have on refocusing the LCAP on instruction. No other district is doing that. No other district. I have it prepared if you'd like to see it on how we would focus on that.
Couple things. And you have to understand, I would like you to be a part of that and to add that as part of your duties to your current position, not particular this one. Couple things that come up that you just mentioned that. Who does Diane report to?
The
on her
assistant
LCAP?
soup of Ed Services,
Which is not here.
which
Currently, well, it'd be Kendi, okay. So that being said, if we move forward with this, then she would then report to you.
pending board
and-
approval.
Right, well, all right, well, I'm thinking.
Right,
ahead.
that's correct.
And then we would have to create a director position to take over your responsibilities for someone in the tech department, because adding another financial is going to create another job.
So
And-
currently, James is an assistant director. It would be the recommendation, and I won't disclose what we mentioned in closed session, that he would be elevated to a director. Also, that director, but he would be under me. So it would be putting curriculum under me. Now, I can tell you that cost is minimal compared to the amount of cost savings I plan to bringing to the LCAP on focusing on instruction, on getting those resources to the students in the classroom. So it's not a huge lift to have James be promoted to a director.
Yeah, okay, so that I can understand this. Then you would have Diane reporting to you. Candace would no longer be involved. Well, we would have to, because at this point, she is involved, obviously for the approval.
Somewhere, and it's usually business services, but yes.
Well,
So
no,
ideally,
but what I'm
Steve,
saying
ideally
is
what I
making
envision
decisions.
is-
She can shut down curriculum instruction. If someone proposes something, she has the power right now to say no.
No, the superintendent has that power, and you hired him.
Okay,
So, just full disclosure, you hired Dr. Rao. He's making some great decisions. We're not going to have a pecking order in cabinet. We are going to collaborate. My goal is to collaborate with your assistant super pupil services to sit right next to me. Looking at the job descriptions that Maribel worked on, there's crossover about LCAP because they need to be involved and we need to be a unified cabinet. So for LCAP, I do have experience with complicated budgets. As you know, I came from project management before education. And so I don't see that as a heavy lift for me. I see it as bringing innovative practices back to focusing the LCAP where it should be, getting rid of the waste, getting rid of things that we don't need to do, which I think you would all appreciate, focusing on site budgets, focusing on teachers in the classroom, focusing on resources. So the LCAP has always been a part of business ed services. It might not have been fleshed out specifically in the job description, but that has been their primary role. as far as a pecking order of somebody putting the squash to what LCAP, we're going to trust the superintendent to not let that happen. I'm going to trust him to not that, or it's not going to be meaningful to me. Like, guys, I could go back to Assistant Sup of Innovation and Technology Services. I'm taking one for the team here, right? And I'm more than happy to do it. I'm more than happy. He's asked me to serve, just like what happened in December, and that went crazy. He's asked me to serve. So I can tell you, I do have experience with complicated budgets. I do have a laser focus on innovation and technology. By the way, there are other districts that do have this setup, that do that. And it is unique.
Which district?
Beverly
Just so I'm
Hills.
aware. Beverly Hills has it?
Yes.
And that's, okay.
So there are other districts that have that. And
That have what's the position that they have that you're referring to?
they have, so they don't call it Assistant Sup of Curriculum Innovation, they call it Assistant Sup of Ed Services, and then they've fleshed out pupil services, so they do
Right,
have
so
that.
again, it's ed services. And that's my point. So my point is we can do all of this by just hiring an ed services person. And then amending or adjusting your job title or responsibilities to the current title. To me, I just think this is, it's too much. I just don't see anybody else doing
Is this doable with Ed Services having the majority of LCAP and the new title CII assisting Ed Services?
Not with the current duties, not with the current responsibilities for the directors who they supervise, the curriculum who they supervise, all the other special programs. It would not be something that would be doable that way. I can tell you, let me go big picture, right? Go big picture to assuage any of your concerns, right? You hired Dr. Rao, great job, innovative thinker, right? Looking at the data to solve real world problems. What this does is allow, here's an example. So at October PD, we set our desired outcomes first. We wanted to honor what teachers were doing. We wanted to honor what classified needed to do, and we wanted to honor what the sites need. And we came up with a solution that everybody liked. Similar to what Dr. Rao's doing, if we're separating the things that take a lot of time and need a lot of like wonkiness and minutia, when it comes to special ed, when it comes to pupil services, when it comes to social workers, there's a lot that pulls that person away from focusing on instruction. And I can tell you, the board has numerous times had to make brave decisions and courageous decisions. I would tell the board, I'm behind you. Make a brave decision, make a courageous decision. To assuage any of your concerns, Steve, LCAP would be tighter. It would be more focused on teaching and learning. It would be, by separating it this way, it's going to do what pupil services and special education need. To be laser focused on that also, to be not pulling away from it.
Now, what's the difference between Ed Services and Pupil Services?
Pupil services handles suspensions, expulsions, special education. They handle more of like the business part of it, of like.
But that's primary K-12, right?
Well, I mean, I wanted to talk to your point about in unified districts. High school districts are more complicated than K-12 districts. We have the same number of high schools as unified districts. And so when it comes to data, when it comes to programs, when it comes to curriculum, it is more complicated at the high school level. And we have the same number of high schools as unified districts. We have the same level of complexity. I'm not saying it's easier at the grade schools, but I'm just letting you know that even though we're a smaller district, we have the same number of high schools, and it is complicated. Special ed is complicated. Technology is complicated. Data is complicated. Curriculum is complicated. Just look at the ELA curriculum, where you have you have ELA 9, you have ELA 10, you have advanced, you have AP. It's complicated, and this plan puts the responsibility and the onus on curriculum instruction innovation, which traditionally would be called Ed Services, and breaks out pupil services. So if there's any concerns about my ability to budget,
I don't think it's
Yeah,
your
I- yeah.
ability, it's the crossover that we're having red flags.
well, the
you know,
crossover
with all the job
Well,
descriptions.
and also,
that's
so
why
to
we're
be fair-
that's why he's pitching it.
Yeah.
to amend it somehow down the road.
Right.
Which I think is a safer bet, because the goal of tonight, if I'm correct, was to hire someone for ed services. But if this CII being first, it kind of throws everything out of whack, right? So say we approve this, then now we can't just hire someone for ed services. Now we have to focus on the other title or job description that we have to work with and figure out, do we agree or disagree? And then we move forward, do we want to move forward with that individual or not?
I wasn't aware that that was the goal, because as mentioned here, what was discussed, and Dave mentioned it, that Dr. Rao had mentioned about taking curriculum innovation and instruction and breaking out pupil services. I wasn't aware that was the goal, because that does add a level of complexity. What you're doing, what you recommended is just to go back to traditional.
For now, because ideally, what he said makes a lot of sense. What we're doing is adding a lot of confusion when we don't need a confusion. We could, if the goal is to appoint someone, let's work towards that, and then work to amend the job descriptions to make everything function properly.
Good point.
And you guys, I'm not shooting down your idea. I think it's a great idea, but how does this work if the goal is to get someone hired?
So I don't know about that goal, but when I can
That's
address,
our primary
I can address a certain part of what you're talking about when, it adds some confusion. This district does need to manage complex change. And I get your point that you said, hey, we didn't lose the ball on instruction. We kind of did.
Well, okay, and so, and I'm glad you're being honest about that, because the insinuation right now is that we lost our way. And that's never been brought up. Everything always been peaches and roses.
Well,
And then now this is a complete shift to change. Now, obviously, the data and the scores, when we saw the math scores, obviously that's glaring.
Yeah.
And change needs to be made. And here's the one thing I will say. I mean, even Anaheim Union, which is bigger than us, they have ed services, business services, HRD. Although you just brought something up that I didn't even think of, I think this could be, and I don't even know how we would do it because it's a complete change, but if we were to if we got rid of pupil services, went with this as well as ed services, the CII. And then,
I think you can do that because you're going to have a lot of overlap from what ed services is and CII. The whole point of this is to break out the instruction portion of ed services so they can be focused on here, and break out the special ed and everything else, pupil services out here, so that can be focused on by somebody else who specializes in that or has a history of that, so they can both be focused on with the amount that needs to be focused on. Right now, it's all kind of in the middle, being covered by one person, and one person can't juggle all these balls at one time and effectively do the job. That's my word.
That's a great point you're making, because not one person is doing it. We know that there's a lot of directors under each of these positions.
I understand that, but even when Mr. Bruff was here, some stuff fell between the cracks because that's a lot of stuff to cover with one business, one title.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just pointing out the fact that we're a lot of
And I
people
think
under
Mr. Bruff did a fine job, but having one title be over all of that, I think it's too much, honestly.
I think that's where we all agree, but I want to bring back to what I thought the original point of the meeting was, to hire someone. And that does add a lot of confusion, not a little bit, but a lot of confusion.
Okay, but I was under the impression that Dr. Rao told us he's going to bring us these job descriptions, and pending our approval of them, he was going to give us his recommendation for appointment for pupil services, and then his recommendation for the CII. That was my impression of our conversation last week. And for some of these heads nodding, that's what the impression was from other people as well. So I'm wondering where you got the impression that we were appointing an ed services.
well, that's on
That's what I thought I heard. Back then in the room.
I never heard that last week when we were talking about that. I'm sorry.
It was mentioned. Maybe.
I
know-
heard the CII and I heard the
Yeah,
pupil
it was
services. I
mentioned.
heard that pending our approval that he was going to bring a recommendation for the pupil services superintendent. I never heard a recommendation for an ed services superintendent. Not once last week.
So that's.
Interesting.
So my concern is, when did that evaporate? So what I'm saying is that should have been a part of the conversation. So in other words,
I
When do
I,
we
I
mix-
feel,
when
I
do
feel
we
it was part of the conversation last week when we were in closed session. And I don't want to break the Brown Act by bringing too much in here, but from what I remember, and please tell me if you remember anything different, because this is what I remember. I remember Dr. Rao coming up and saying, this is my idea to focus on instruction and focus on special ed, because they both need their own focus, essentially. And so he pitched us the idea of moving some of the ed services stuff over on Joe's job description, which essentially this would be his new title, Curriculum Instruction and Innovation, and having a pupil services to focus on special ed and all the other pupil services that come in. And maybe he didn't make it clear enough to say that there was going to be no more ed services. I don't know if that's where you're.
Yeah, that wasn't my understanding.
Okay,
So my
but-
understanding, so obviously, under the ed services, all that would be taken care of. And so what we're doing here.
Ineffectively is what I'm talking about.
Well, right, so I guess we're saying we don't know if we have an effective person to, so I'm real confused, because you're saying that we're making monumental shifts out of ed services because it's too much, and we're shifting all of that responsibility on someone who already has.
No, all the responsibility on two people that can focus on individual portions of it that need to be focused on. That's my point, is that instead of one person focusing on the umbrella, taking stuff out so people can focus on their specialties. That's what I'm seeing.
So here's the issue that I have with this. With the CII, assumes primary responsibility for planning, developing, and monitoring the annual local control accountability plan and LEA federal addendum. That, I think, should be shared, in my opinion, with an ed services position. I'm not, obviously, we're not discussing the other one, but that shift, and like I said, I didn't know that when he was gonna go and take a look at creating something different, I didn't know that was eliminating something.
Okay,
That's not
would
my understanding.
it be better for your mind to relabel this as ed services? Curriculum, instruction, innovation, because that's pretty much what ed services is, not including special ed, not including discipline. It's pretty much ed services. Is the title holding you up, is my question?
Well, no, it's.
Because all the job descriptions are gonna be taken care of just by being spread out.
Right, so then you would be saying we're not talking about curriculum, instruction, and innovation. We're saying we're changing his position to ed services.
That's what I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking you, would you be more comfortable if this said ed services instead of curriculum, instruction, and innovation? Because
Well, no,
essentially
because then, okay, so if he was no longer part of the tech part, and
Okay.
he took over ed services, then I would be okay with that.
Just FYI, districts adopt two models of technology. It's rare that you have like a CTO who's a cabinet member. I was an executive director. It is actually the best way to go to have that person as a cabinet member, but most districts have it either under curriculum, which is better. Some districts have it under business services, which I think is not a good option. So in Hemet, the tech director works for curriculum instruction. In Menifee, works for curriculum instruction. So, I mean, we're good with how technology is running, by the way.
Right, no,
So-
absolutely.
so-
And
so-
that's exactly
The
why.
technology would continue to do great work.
Yeah.
And be nested under curriculum and instruction, which Valverde does the same thing, right? So that would be nested in there. It's a high-performing department.
Well, they do it, but it's not in the titling. So that's, I guess, I guess here's my, I think we need more information. I don't know how, because now you're bringing up a different school district. I've looked up the stuff. So without us, I think what we need to do is we need to look at all of this stuff and figure out how all that is gonna be done. Because I just think right now, we're going in a direction that, I mean, I'm completely lost and confused and don't have confidence.
Here's a suggestion that is
moving
not
this way.
news to you all. Because I've had these conversations with every single one of you when I served for 2 months as interim. The board, in my humble opinion, should get a lot of satisfaction and pride at focusing on governance. You hired a superintendent. You hired a superintendent highly qualified. That that the superintendent put a well-thought-out plan. And this is going to be complex change. It absolutely is. But we know that we're going to manage complex change. I would feel that as a big picture, respectfully, that the board should get satisfaction that you hired a great superintendent. Job well done, right? The superintendent made some recommendations for hires. Job well done. The board approved those, right? When it comes to reorganizing and having the courage to address stuff that people have not been addressing in the past, because Albert Einstein says we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that got us in these problems to begin with. My recommendation is let us help the board focus on governance, get satisfaction of that, and let the superintendent make his decisions. But I realize also that the purpose of this is to get feedback from the board. So just to be totally respectful, just like the other meetings, it is our responsibility to get feedback from the board, and that is what should happen, right? So that's, my position as a big picture is, I think we need to get back to being boring. We need to get back to doing
We're not looking to, how do I say it? We do have trust. We absolutely have trust. I think I'm agreeing with Mr. Campos right now at the moment because there's a lot of information that seems to be chaotic for us to understand, and we need to decipher through that. I'm not against it. Like I said before, I like the idea, but I also think that both of those positions should have responsibility with LCAP. Now, I'm sure there's other more topics that we'll dive into once we start reading more and more and start comparing them. But there's other JDs that we're talking about that are affected. And he made a great argument. Is it being taken out of the other titles, job description? And we still haven't received that answer. We're just focusing on what is being presented to us right now.
Mr. President, I have a question, if I may. First of all, I think every single department we have is going to have some say in the LCAP because every single department is going to
In the
have.
job description is what I'm asking.
Well, I don't know if we have this job description, any job description. That's why we made the change in October for the oversight to be under Ed Services. So I don't think it was in any job description. I don't think we ever made that revision ever since the state has been requiring us to do LCAP. But that doesn't
being
not mean.
supportive,
But that
right?
does not mean that every department doesn't have a say in it because all their departments, it's going to be effective. It's going to be affected in some way by the LCAP. So they have to have some kind of say. Okay. Secondly, if you do read the job description, it says that CII will work closely with pupil services, and that includes the LCAP. If you, it says in both those job descriptions that they would work together. So that would be included with that. Just let you know if you want to go look through the both of those job descriptions because I did see that. Secondly, or maybe thirdly, I don't know. If you look through this, none of these the educational services, all the job descriptions under educational service, everything is being done. It's just the responsibilities are being shifted to new titles. And right now, all the every single job description from the Ed Services that we just approved 3 weeks ago is being done, but it's just the responsibilities are being shifted to either CII or pupil services.
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
Okay, so it's not like things will not be done or we won't have some kind of hierarchy because we will, because the job description is laid out there. It's just a matter, I think Mr. Campos is getting caught up on the fact that we don't have an Ed Services assistant superintendent, but all the job descriptions are still being done by somebody.
I don't think that's the argument. I think
That's what it sounds like to me.
Here's actually another question. So do the titles actually have to change?
I don't care about the title. I'm here to serve.
I mean,
Right,
that's why
right.
I'm.
And that's a part of that's what we're talking about. But he was talking about more of the job description, not the title. And the titles keep coming up in that.
The job description, like I said, everything is still under somebody's job description. Everything that was in there has been
evident.
shifted, so it's still under somebody's job description. But what we're trying to do is, his previous job description is essentially taking on some extra responsibilities.
Yes.
If you want to call that Ed Services, is that going to make you feel better about it, the fact that we still have an ed services? Because
No,
all
you're
the same
focused
job
on the
description.
title. I'm not arguing the title, I'm arguing the job description.
And I have no problem with it because all the job descriptions are already being covered by this too. If we approve both of these, all the job descriptions are being approved. All we're doing is shifting it so that somebody can focus on instruction, which we've needed for decades. Ever since I got here, we've had low test scores, and
Absolutely
Dr.
agree.
Rao, you came on the board two years after I did, and we've been doing nothing but beating our heads against the wall, trying to figure out how to get test scores up better and how to get our kids more well prepared when they leave our school.
Right.
And this allows us to focus on the data and getting that job done.
We're not
But we're
arguing
also,
that, though.
but we're also beating our head against the fact that we've had to deal with all this special ed, and so much of our general fund is hijacked by extra special ed costs that are not covered by the state, that we are losing millions of dollars every single year having to deal with it. And I'm not saying that would go away overnight, but if we had somebody who had the specialization and was able to focus on that, perhaps we could save some money there as well.
Right.
But if we have one person under over ed services that has to focus on everything, something's gonna fall through the cracks.
We agree on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, so
I honestly don't think we need, I need extra time. I'm perfectly fine. If you want to recommend it, then we can put that to a vote and see how the rest of the board feels. But I'm perfectly fine with these.
I have a couple more
Yeah,
questions.
we could tell, but I think he was arguing duties, not what you're saying.
Yeah.
And actually, I agree with everything you
And I
said.
feel the duties are all covered under one job description or another.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have a question for Maribel then, because I want to know how this job description was created, because there's language in here that I see language in another job description, and so at what point was the decision made to move that? And so you're saying that was Dr. Rao's, did he specifically say move that? Did you specifically? I don't know. All I know is that line right there assumes primary responsibility for planning, developing, and monitoring the annual local control accountability plan, the LEA federal addendum. Came from another job description that we had already looked at, which was, I think, plucked and kind of weaved. So if you could
Yes,
share
sure.
what job descriptions or where were you grabbing the language?
I did,
in
I
order
grabbed-
to-
Yes, sir. I did grab it, yes, sir, I grabbed it from the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, the one October 3rd, the one that board approved October 3rd, because again, as Mr. Nelson said, we're taking some of those duties into the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Innovative Services, so that one I was told was gonna fall under because of curriculum instruction. Diane Martin falls under that area, so that would fall under this job description, as well as would CTE, adult ed, alternative education programs. Basically, you know, the curriculum programs and instruction programs would fall under this job description. I don't want to say Joe, because it really is not about people, it's really about the job descriptions. And then the other one would be very separate and would be pupil services and special education specialization. So yes, I did take that, because of course Dr. Rao had a very detailed discussions about what we would want each, or what he would want each position to cover and be responsible for. So I took that, so that of course was under at least one of those positions, because
Those discussions were those had with Mr. Williams?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have that conversation with the human resources, with the director of human resources, with Maribel.
I think one of my concerns, and I didn't say this, is that there creates a hierarchy amongst cabinet members. And in the past, we've talked about everyone being equal. I'm just staring at you because you're in front of me, but it's more
that's
towards
okay.
you.
Okay.
But we wanted everybody to be equal. We don't want power grab moves. We want everybody to be equal so that everyone's effective and transparent. And, you know, part of the culture in the district is I get paid more, so and I'm not pointing at you guys, by the way. I get paid more, so I say what goes, and I have the final say-so over the past superintendent, and we've had those issues. And I'm not trying to create drama. I really do want to stay focused here, but that is one of my heavy concerns that weighs heavily on my heart. I do not want a hierarchy amongst
Wait,
cabinet
actually,
members.
can I
Okay.
ask a quick question? What, like, how does this create hierarchy? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, how does that create it?
Yeah, I'm failing to see that. How do you see,
Yeah.
how do you see this creating a hierarchy?
Yeah.
How do you see
Yeah.
it, please?
Whoever controls the money controls the district.
But that's gonna be anyone regardless of who it is, and why not Joe when he's more than qualified
But
to
my
do
thought
it?
process is a little bit different. The more everyone talks, the more I'm thinking. So I was trying to
Yeah,
ask you.
I can
is
answer
there a
that question,
way-
sir.
And I know you said it was in the job description, and I understand what you're saying, but I'm thinking a little bit differently right now. Is there any way we could balance that out amongst Joe and the ed services or whatever? it's
Pupil
called,
services.
Pupil
Yeah.
services, whatever. Is there any way to balance that out so that way there's no hierarchy?
Okay, let me answer that, and then I'm going to have a question on that one for the whole board. It was placed under curriculum, instruction, and innovation because that's where the LCAP is going to go the most to support our students, to really identify the needs of our students, the areas, so we can move forward. My question is, on October 3rd, on September 18, you directed me to remove the LCAP from business services and place it under educational services. It was one position only handling the LCAP. And now you are telling me you want to divide it. I just follow your line of thinking that you said, we want the LCAP in educational services. By the way, because Mr. Campos mentioned that, it was put there on the LCAP because you directed us, and you knew that it was there, Mr. Campos, because last night we had a conversation, and you said that I didn't follow your directives, the board directives, and I emailed to you, Ms. Fessner, emailed to you the job description of educational services with the LCAP. So today you also mentioned again that you didn't know that that was done. So that, you just said it's on the record, sir.
I know,
But let me finish and answer Mr. Garcia's question. So I don't see, again, any issues with the LCAP because that's what you ask to place under educational services in one position only. So why now we want to separate it if that's the gist, that's the fundamental element to support instruction and therefore our students. We are here for our students. I would like to hear more in this discussion how this will benefit our students, right? Instead of, that's my philosophy. So I hope I answer your question and I answering with another question. Why that shift from October 3rd that you approve LCAP under educational services only, and now you want to divide it? What is the objective behind that proposal, or what is? I just want to understand to see how feasible it is what you are asking me now, less than 2 weeks later.
So when we had the conversation, I had told you that I couldn't find the amended one. I couldn't find it. When I printed it out, this is what I printed out. Now, I know that that other one was sent, but what I'm saying is the reference to our conversation was based on Breff's old job description.
Yes.
Which is why I said it didn't have it. That's why, so having sent the new one, that was different. That was after our conversation.
Yes.
So that's why I said that.
Yes.
That was the whole purpose of that, was because in this one, see, and I thought when we had approved for you to take a look at that, I thought you were bringing up jobs so that we could take a look at all of them. I didn't realize one was replacing the other.
Okay.
That wasn't my
Yeah,
understanding.
that was your understanding, yes.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't your
Yeah, no,
understanding,
no, What I'm
yes.
saying is that wasn't my understanding.
Yeah.
And so for me, I mean, I don't mind going through. I mean, I guess, you know, I just thought we were gonna need, this got a lot more complicated than what I thought, because there's other things that this, obviously, it kind of shifts, so on the reporting, like, I don't understand how, so now it's going, so Diane used to report to Candace, who she no longer, no, under
She was,
the LCAP? So who
she-
did she report to?
how was already explained by Mr. Nellison, she was reporting directly to the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, even though the term LCAP was not in the job description. So in practicality, in the actual day-to-day, they were handling the LCAP. That's why on October 3rd, you said, we want it also in the job description, and that's what we did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because in the meanwhile.
And I understand it is confusing, sir.
No, I
Yeah,
know, and that's why-
that's
that's
why
why-
we're having this discussion, right?
That's
Yeah.
why, it's hard for me to, but I guess we're just gonna have to. make
I
a
want to say
decision.
something that's kind of bothering me for a second. You said that we said to remove it from business services. I don't recall that. I just recall saying add it to the ed services.
And
not
I don't
business
think it
services.
was in the job description for business service. I don't think it was in the job description for anything, because I don't think we ever made a revision once they
Right.
they
But
gave us the
What I
LCAP.
was saying was
So-
that just kind of bothered me because I don't think any of the board said remove it from business service, but that's okay, right? I
Okay.
think we're moving forward. I'm
Can I
going to
answer-
ask,
Can I
I'm
talk
going to,
about equity for a minute? Because you talked about them being equal, but we have to be careful when we talk about being equal and when we talk about equality and we talk about equity. We have to be careful because what this does is it is equity. It is providing us to focus on instruction, to focus on special ed. And I agree with you. Like, I've lived it. Cabinet members should be on the same level and should be equal. I mean, I've lived this for 8 years, so I agree with you. And I trust under Dr. Rao that's going to happen. But this does provide equity because we're going to be doing our students right on pupil services and doing our students right for special education, and we're going to be refocusing on instruction, right? Not, we did set some other priorities. They were still doing instruction, but we're going to refocusing on making that a priority. So I just would want to say that this does help with our equity.
right.
I've been on the board 12 years, and I've heard Tony say it many times, just because it's what's been done in the past does not mean that's what needs to be done or what should be done right now. And so this would be a diverging from what we've done in the past, which obviously has not worked when it comes to students' test scores, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
This would be at least an attempt for us
Absolutely.
to focus on what needs to be focused on.
I'm not disputing that, and I see where we're going, but what I was focused was on some of the job duties, not all of them.
Okay.
When I made the comment, is there any way to share LCAP to be fair, right? Not one person have more responsibility than the other, and force them to work together. Now, I am not gonna lie, personally, now that you brought it up, I've been thinking about everything everybody's saying. I don't like the titles. That's just me being me, but whatever.
Okay.
If it matters to you guys, we'll vote, whatever. I do see this working, but with a few tweaks. And I still want to read a little bit more of some of the duties. But right now, my focal point is the LCAP.
Okay.
That's just my focal point. I'm not talking about
Okay.
anything else. I'm not talking about how it's going to work, because I know it's going to work.
No,
Because we're going to make sure
and I
it
agree
works,
with
right?
you.
We're going to set up this system so it doesn't fail.
And I agree with you in the fact that LCAP is going to be, in this regard, would be under curriculum and instruction and innovation. I agree with you that the majority of it would be, but the majority of it's going to be somewhere. It's not going
we're
to
not
be
disagreeing there.
evenly distributed across the entire
right.
district, and never will be, ever.
Right.
So, doesn't matter even if we break off a little piece for pupil services and break off a little piece for business services, the majority's still gonna be with curriculum and instruction, which is where it should be.
I agree, and I know that.
Okay.
And I've said I know many times, and
No,
it keeps coming back at me like I don't know what I'm talking
you keep
about.
saying you wanna make it even, and I don't know if we can ever make it even, is my point.
Okay, that's different.
Okay.
That's clarity. But like I said, the more we all talk, the more little things
No,
come up.
no, and that's
so
fine. That's why
my
we're here
wheels are
for. I
turning. I'm
want
thinking
us to
about
talk.
everything. Yeah.
I want us to get all these ideas out because I want us to have the best possible way, the best possible chance of succeeding going forward.
For sure. You're going to say something, Dr. Ross?
Oh, thank you, President Garcia. I just wanted to address what you mentioned, and my apologies. You mentioned that. Yeah, I misspoke. Probably you were not specifically saying that, but if it was not under human resources, the LCAP, if it was not under educational services, it was not under technology, and you directed me to put it under that. So that's why that's what I misspoke. So it was not probably, I said, okay, remove it from business
Yeah,
to put it,
I'm
to
not
put it there.
challenging
So
you.
I'm
It
really
just
sorry.
bothered me,
Yeah.
like we gave you a directive and we didn't. And
Yeah.
No.
so I apologize too.
Well,
Yeah,
we,
but-
we did give him a directive and
Well,
put it
yeah,
under,
but
under
not,
ed
but not to
services.
take something
Yeah.
away, right?
Well, the
Just for
thing
clarity.
is, I don't think anybody had oversight of the LCAP in the job descriptions beforehand.
exactly.
That's
That-
the
yeah,
problem.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
That's accurate, and that's why I'm concerned.
And I understand
you know,
what Mr.
because-
Garcia, and my apologies
No,
again.
no,
sir.
you're absolutely fine. You know, Joe mentioned the fact that he's lived it, and that's where my brain is right now. Like, how do we change the culture that's existing right now, and how do we move forward? That's a part of it. That's why I'm really thinking about all of this.
How you
All-
change it is you hired a superintendent that's gonna put a stop.
And all of these, it does get confusing. And I know we needed the information, right? Because it's back information that we should take into account.
And when I first looked at it, I was a little confused too, but then you have to realize that they put in the old job description of educational services. They put in the new job description of educational services, and then they put in the other ones that we were talking about today. So yes, it was a bit confusing. I fully agree with that. When I sat down
But it
too.
wasn't on the agenda, is my point.
Okay.
Okay, may I address that topic? The reason on the agenda was just pupil services and curriculum instruction and innovation. But during the conversation yesterday, Mr. Campos asked me to please include all of that because he wanted to see them. So I said, if you want to see them, I'm going to provide it to all board members so you can have a discussion. So if that created some confusion, well, that is the reason I put them there, right? And it's informative, yeah. But the objective of this meeting, we go with the agenda and you can see it, right? Was to approve the job description of pupil services and CII.
And I
That's
believe Tony had a question or comment.
I've been just trying to wrap my head around it. So, a couple of questions. We talked about classified or certificated. Which one is it going to be? Certificated, okay.
Certificated.
The,
Is there a requirement on either one of these that they have to be certificate? I didn't look at the, both of them require credential, okay.
oh, you have you have credentials, okay. Second is compensation.
Yeah, I need to
We
address that.
discussed that before.
So on compensation, the number that say 250 and 260, those are equivalent on the compensation. They're just different numbers designating classified and certificated. So that number that says 250 and 260, if you look at the salary schedule, it's across the same line for the salary, because what the board decided was that cabinet would be on the same page. It's just a designation between classified and certificated. No. It's that same line.
Yeah, he was
Yes.
saying the same thing. Thank you.
I just wanted to address the same thing. We are in the same page. The new salary schedule that you approved in the last regular board, special board meeting eliminates the salary for classified assistant sup. So now in the salary schedule, we have only assistant superintendent. Yeah, so it's not going to be make any difference.
Okay. Doesn't, so nothing changes money-wise.
That's correct.
What I see here is the Ed Services title being kind of a hang-up. I kind of did a crossover of, well, I know we're not talking about pupil services, but we will. So I'll just go on the curriculum and instruction. Assumes primary responsibility for planning, developing, and monitoring the annual local, the LCAP and the LEA federal addendum. Second, I had it administers and supervises the budgets for educational services and categorical programs. But when you go to the other one, there are crossover items that, there's three there, but I'm not going to read that because we're not there. What I would say is that,
Well, one of them is,
the-
assumes
the-
primary
the
responsibility.
primary
And then the other one is knowledge of. So somebody, like for my position in tech, I'm in charge of approving and signing off on E-rate. I have the primary
Primary,
responsibility.
yes.
So the difference was, this job by title should have the primary responsibility. We're not talking about the other job description, but the other job description has a crossover that says, will contribute.
Board-
Would it be just,
Assist,
is it too
yeah.
difficult if we just cleaned up these JDs and come back?
The board can do what they want. I am not here to.
I
tell
think
the
that'll
board
be
what they
the
want.
simplest thing for us to do.
I'm just telling you right now, we've lost a lot of ground here in the district,
Yeah.
and we need to get to work.
I agree, I strongly agree, but at the same time, we're having
The
discussion
board
about the
can
JD.
amend, the board can make decisions,
Yeah, like, why don't we
ahead.
just approve and then amend it? Like, what do we need to change? Like, what's gonna make you happy for it to change?
Right.
Yeah.
And because what I would have liked, which didn't happen, would be also look at Candace's job description and compare it, so that way it doesn't cross over.
Well, not only that, but the attorney was. Yeah,
Only for the LCAP, for me.
so the attorney didn't have access to the old assistant superintendent, which is why, that's been kind of where, that's why I wanted everything to be laid out, so we had it all to be able to discuss. Because now we have,
Wait, how do you know the attorney didn't have that?
because these are the two that he said he was given direction on. Was this submitted to the attorney?
So you didn't submit the old job description of educational services to the attorney?
No, we didn't.
I can check my records.
Okay.
But I wasn't
I
a part of
don't
the
remember,
process, but what
but I can check-
substantial changes
I can
did
check
the
my
attorney
records.
make?
So.
Like, I don't know if they made any
Okay,
substantial
well,
changes.
and I know some of that is attorney, the privilege with, our.
Attorney-client privilege?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but here's my thing.
Yeah, don't answer that
Okay.
then.
We had this pretty much set, right?
Which one is that one you're holding?
The assistant superintendent.
You're talking about the revised one?
Yes. the
Okay,
revised one.
okay.
So that one, had we been discussing that, we wouldn't have these two. All we would have had to have done is amend his job description to add those in there. Now, my concern is
And I-
the assumes primary under ESS, and he would be assisting. So then we would have him assisting our new ed services position, as opposed to that ed. So now what it is he's assuming and and pupil services is now assisting. And that's the shift.
Okay, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I do have a few questions, so. If we shifted the curriculum instruction, like Dr. Rao said last week, to his job of innovation and technology, or is that, the technology innovation was?
Curriculum instruction and
No, I'm talking about your current job,
assistant soup of innovation.
innovation and technology. So if we were to shift curriculum instruction, his job title would have to change. So it couldn't stay as
No, it could, all you, it would just be, obviously, you'd have to be okay with it to have an amendment to the job description. Giving him, because then he would have oversight, not ultimate authority, but oversight over the LCAP. Because I would want him in the conversation with our ed services person to make sure that they are taking care of it. They basically have the final say as to how they're gonna do it, and then it gets obviously sent to business services to approve or decline, because then obviously there's money involved, so the responsibility then would be
Okay.
business services to say,
So
okay,
you're saying that ones we have currently, that we're looking at today, that pupil services should remain ed services? Even though there's no longer curriculum instruction involved in that?
no, there is, it's in the one we approved.
No, I'm talking about the ones we're looking at today, this bullet point and next bullet point. You're talking about this pupil services should say ed services, not pupil services.
Well, yes and no. So, obviously, the title would be one as well, but it's also the role of the job. The role of the job is under, so technically, right now, when you look at these two and you look at job titles, and let's just say this is CII, and this is pupil services, this assumes the primary responsibility.
Okay, and I get that, but
And-
if
and
he's,
traditionally, it's this
okay,
that
but
goes there.
let's say his position takes the curriculum and instruction, and you're saying you just want him to have oversight, but not primary responsibility. If he's in charge, if he's responsible for it, I want him to have primary responsibility, and I want him to make those decisions, because otherwise, he can essentially say whatever he wants and then kind of give like a watered-down version, and the person in ed services doesn't actually know what's going on, even though it's their primary responsibility. I want his responsibility to be on that position right there, not ed
Okay,
services.
so now we're making an assumption that we would hire somebody who doesn't
No,
understand that.
but
which
we
just
don't,
said.
we don't know that.
Well-
The people we're looking at to hire right now, yes, I'm not gonna be on the board down the road when we may have to hire somebody else, so I don't know. I'm just saying, if that person's in charge of curriculum instruction, I want them to have the primary responsibility. I don't want them to just have oversight and and give recommendations to the person who is in charge. I want them to be in charge because that gives them more ownership, and and the superintendent can go directly to that person and say, you were in charge of this. What's going on? Why isn't stuff happening like so? He can't, instead of going to the Ed Services and then Ed Services coming back and making those assumptions. I want him to have him, who's our only employee, I want him to be able to go straight to the assistant superintendent who's in charge and say, what's going on? How can I help? Where's our money being spent? All that other stuff. I want the primary responsibility to be him and assisting the superintendent. I don't want him just to have oversight and assisting the assistant superintendent. That's not, if the title is assistant superintendent, I want him to have the primary responsibility.
So when we interviewed for the position, what did we interview for?
For which position are we talking about?
For the Ed Services.
We never interviewed for Ed Services. We interviewed superintendents, and we may get a candidate for this new position from whomever we interviewed. But we never interviewed for Ed Services, period. Never once.
We had flown the position, but we didn't interview.
We didn't flow the position. We made sure we didn't flow.
The position was always flown.
No, it was never flown. Never once, because we had to make we have a temporary, right now we have a temporary Ed Services, Kindy. We wanted to make changes to the job description first before we flew it. So we made those changes 3 weeks ago and have not flown that position yet since we made those changes.
Actually, it was flown way
It
back.
was flown.
It was
Oh,
flown
okay,
way
this is
back when.
news to me.
It
I'm
was
sorry.
flown way back when,
Oh.
after Bob left.
You're right,
And
and-
then
and-
we had interviews scheduled, but there was two candidates,
Two
and
candidates
the
instead of
board
three.
had
I'm
asked
sorry,
for there
you're-
to be three.
and then-
So the candidates were sent away, so it was flown,
Yes,
sir.
because Grant also said that he was going, because we weren't going to put the ballot on the election, for the bond. We weren't gonna do it, so that's when Grant said he was gonna retire, and because of that, we said we wanted the new superintendent to have a say in who that was. So when he came to us with two candidates, we said we'd rather have three, and since he was gonna retire, we were gonna hold off on that. Thank you for the clarification, because you're right, I completely misremembered that, my bad. So, under this new job description, though, we have never flown this position.
Right. Well, and that could be said for these two as well.
No, we haven't flown for anybody, because we still have to approve these possibles right here.
Well, then that's what I'm saying. That's
So,
the.
but you were saying we interviewed for Ed Services, and not counting the one where we got two candidates. I'm talking about for this position, we've never had interviews for this position. So, I mean,
So
All right.
no,
this would direct, well,
and to your point, is,
I'm still a little
okay.
off, but that's okay.
Okay, well, and to your point, if we approve these two, does this get completely written off the books, or is this still on the books for someone down the road to possibly fill down because they want to go back to this position?
Well, that would be the decision of the board. We
Okay.
we can leave it and fill. How do we, Ms. Maribel? What would be the answer for that question? Because
Let me-
let's hypothetically speaking, the board approves pupil services and curriculum instruction and innovation. What is going to happen with student educational services?
Well, we would not have it on our website because obviously it's not a current position, but you could always bring it back. I
That's
mean,
not-
but
that's not-
again, you
That's-
could come
it
here,
can be
same
brought
thing.
back.
You'd
No,
have to
wouldn't it
change
stay
the
on the books
process.
until we remove it?
It would stay, if you
Yeah.
remove it, yes, and you say.
So it would still stay on the
No,
website.
because when we don't have that position, because again, these two would replace that one, we would just have it in our archives, to be honest, in our files, our archives, but it wouldn't be on the website because we don't have anybody in that position, so we would not want to
Yeah,
It
I-
only
confuse.
shows the
Well,
filled
I-
positions.
It would show the
But-
two new ones, yes, sir.
But what his point is that even though we don't have anybody filling it, it would still be a position that a future superintendent, or even Dr. Arau, if this doesn't work, could bring back.
Absolutely,
Yes, it's
absolutely. They can,
something
like I
that-
said, it would be in our archives. We have it. We could always pull it out, just like you pulled out Bob
We're
Ruff's.
not getting rid of it.
We don't get rid of
Unless
it.
we decide to do that. We're not getting rid of it by approving these. We are just essentially putting it aside while,
I didn't ask that. I know that, yeah.
Yes,
No.
sir. 250 is gone. If you're saying, if you approve these two, and you want the assistant superintendent curriculum instruction innovative services, it would be a 250.
Aside from that.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Did this supersede this, or is this still on the books?
I don't know what you're
Oh, you're-
showing me,
okay.
sorry.
Okay, this one was revised, yes, revised February
Bob's is
20th,
done.
2019. This one was
still on the
replaced by the one we approved.
The October 3rd one, and you're correct, though, it should be 250
They
on
both
the
should
salary
be
schedule.
250. They both should be
Wait, no,
250.
wait, for clarity, we have not removed those, so they still exist.
No, I understand that, but what he's saying is that this one that was approved 2014, revised 2019,
Would be the
this one
most
is
recent.
completely gone because it was
Replaced.
because this one superseded it. But
Yes,
this
but it
one,
still
this
exists.
one still exists on the books
Yes.
if we approve these to be brought back at another time by a different superintendent or whatever.
Correct.
So if,
That's what we said.
so I know, so if we run this for 4 years and we figure out that it's not working, we could technically come back to this.
Correct,
Could.
yes, at any time. You
Without
can
without
always
having
make
to go through a whole board approval and
the
everything
board.
else.
And then if we want to remove it, we have to vote on it.
We would have to vote on it to remove it.
Yep, that is your authority, yes, sir.
I mean,
All right, that was great
Thank
discussion,
you, Ms.
guys.
I
Madera.
How about
appreciate the
Thank you.
discussion, and I'm glad, I hope everybody's questions got answered, because if,
that? Is
any more,
there
this
any
is
more
the time.
discussion going on?
I mean, so now that you mentioned that this would stay on the books, I'm just hypothetical. Joe's very talented, right?
He's- he doesn't mean to be bragging or anything, but this is all on the record, so watch what you say.
If like many assistant superintendents, if he left the district and he had the opportunity to become a superintendent, which is very.
A possibility,
Oh,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I would probably guess there's probably districts right now who would love to take him. Now, if that happens, can we fill this?
What, though,
So if that were to happen, and you don't even, well, you can respond in a minute, but okay, so if that were to happen then,
which one do you have in your hand right now?
his CII job,
Okay, so can we fill that with somebody else, is what you're talking about?
technically, right? Well, yeah,
So technically, right now,
I think it's gonna be very difficult to find another Joe.
Thank you.
So this would be there, but would this eliminate this?
And what is that one? That's,
Services, because this goes
well,
with this.
what we could do at that, if that happened, and we couldn't find somebody to do the job as effectively as Joe does, and we didn't feel that we found the right one, we could move the assistant superintendent of pupil services into the ed services, because it's not leaving the books, and then we could find somebody to fill Joe's current job, which is also not leaving the books. So,
Well,
I,
it's, nobody has, we're fortunate, nobody has Joe in.
absolutely, I'm not taking Joe for granted, but I also want to make sure that we are moving in the correct direction to help our students as well.
Oh, yeah, well,
So-
I think regardless, I think that statement is saying that if we go the other way, we're not moving in that direction. I think everything that we're discussing, every position here is moving in that direction. And, I just think we're going in different directions on how to get there, and that's obviously what the discussion is about.
Absolutely.
But I would definitely think that everybody's moving. I think we've identified, I think all of us, prior to Dr. Arau, there's been issues that, that's why we had a lot of stuff.
And there still are issues which we have to tackle, unfortunately,
Right.
that's the
Well,
thing.
yeah, but you know what, though, at the same time, I think things are moving, now that we're starting to assemble the team. But I'm just trying to think of every possible situation outside of the box, current, present, future.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think we absolutely need to.
So, yeah, I don't know, personally, I would, and that's the problem, like, tabling anything right now because those positions aren't filled is very difficult.
How many months have we gone without an ed services director?
I know.
Not counting Kenny, she's done a great job, but
that's
how
what I'm
long have we
saying, though.
been without it?
There's a lot here, and I don't know, I think
know.
it warrants,
Well,
more.
and I know our two biggest things are attendance, because if we get our attendance up, we bring more money in, which will help fund
But
services.
the ed services position, that's gonna tackle that, that's still in.
No, the pupil services one will focus on attendance.
So this one.
Which one do you have in your hand?
Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
Yes, but like I said, the ed services I felt was too big of an umbrella, and that person, whoever's in that position has to focus on too many things and can't focus primarily on the things we need to focus on, which are
You guys are making it
attendance. I
sound
know,
like it's
we're
only
go-
one person,
no,
though.
no.
We know it's a huge
No, I understand
department.
that, but assistant superintendent of ed services is one position and one person who has primary responsibility and oversight over all of this, and
Who
I feel it's too much.
delegates the work,
And I
and that
feel-
is
I feel it's
currently
too much.
happening right now.
I understand
Putting
that.
that umbrella just under Joe, and that's,
Well,
I mean, it's the same.
And I understand that, but if you,
Same shift, just.
if you-
It's the same situation.
if you hire somebody in ed services who has a special education background, they're gonna focus on special education because that's what they know. And the curriculum instruction might fall a little bit by the wayside. And if you hire somebody who has focused more on curriculum instruction, special ed might fall, or attendance might fall along the wayside. I want both of those to be focused on as much as possible because we need to bring in more money by bringing up attendance. And we need to focus on curriculum and getting our students to perform better on tests and get more prepared for after school when they leave our school. So, I mean, I feel two people focusing on those two main tasks would do better than one person focusing on everything.
Well, it would, and I see that's where I think there's a misunderstanding. They would still, in amending his position, we're still talking about two people, no matter which way you slice it.
Yeah.
And all it is adding to his title without adding all the other, adding to his job description as opposed to then rearranging and changing everything. And actually, Maribel, question.
Well, if we add to his, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So on the 260, and I apologize, it hasn't sunk in, the 250 and the 260, are they different salary schedules?
No, we
same
just,
salary schedule.
just one's classified, one's
One's
certificate.
classified or certificated.
Exactly the same.
So the assistant
So the
superintendent,
people services is considered classified?
no, that's certificated.
And
They all should say 250.
They should all say 250, yeah. Because before we had said we made it 260 because
they're-
Joe was
but they're at
classified.
260? Okay.
That
So
should be
Joe was
250 as well.
classified, so we left it at 260. But
They all should say 250.
correct.
The only reason why it said 260 is because Joe had a class,
Joe is classified,
Okay, so this one, Assistant Superintendent Curriculum Instruction, it says 260.
right. It should be
Should say
250 now.
Assistant Superintendent Pupil Services, 250. All I'm saying is what's in front of us.
yeah, they
that's
should,
what it says in
they
the
should
correction
all
is
say
it should all
260.
be
250, yes, they should all 250. 250.
They will be 250 if you approve them both. We'll make sure of that again because Joe had been, because technology is usually classified, so technology innovation, he was classified, and we left it at classified. But because if you're saying you want it because of his curriculum instruction, should be certificated, which you're correct, and Joe has his admin credential, we could make it certificate. That's easy. That's not a problem.
And what I was about to say before I forget, when I lose my train of thought, is that if you want to move the job description from ed services to him to deal with curriculum instruction, you have to take it out of ed services. Otherwise, you have two people responsible for the exact same thing, and that's where we have chaos, because one person says, I'm in charge of this. No, and the other person says, no, I'm in charge of this. They both say, so if we take it out of ed services, it stays out of ed services, which brings this down to pupil services is what we're talking about. We can't have two people in charge of the same thing. We can't,
And I didn't say that.
well, that's what you were talking about.
What I said was, this language for the CII says it assumes primary responsibility. Pupil services assists. My position was ed services assumes primary. Curriculum, whether it's curriculum of instruction and innovation services or his old title, they assist. That's what I was saying.
And that's what I had talked about earlier, is if he's in charge of it, I want him to have the primary responsibility, not assisting in it.
Okay, yeah, so I guess that's,
So that's what we're.
That's the rub that we're focusing on right here. Okay.
And I just, I think this is too quick. Well, it's tough because we should have hired yesterday, but I'm not completely comfortable with this. So,
Any more discussion? I'm
Add a
going to call for the vote. in
Quick
a second.
question.
Yep.
So the Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, the one that says board approve and salary schedule and road, that doesn't have anything?
Yeah,
Which
I-
one's this one?
I had a question on this one too.
Like, I don't understand
It's-
this one.
I'm gonna have to ask Anna.
We had,
'cause
we
she-
had
where
one,
did you
we
pull
had one that
from,
was
Anna?
approved in 2014. We had one that was approved 3
And
weeks
this
ago.
one doesn't
And
have
this one
anything
has
in it.
absolutely
I
nothing
don't
listed,
know why I
so.
was gonna ask.
Is that the
The
old
attorney?
associate? with the.
Oh, the
Ed Services
associate one, which we shot down. Okay, that
From
was the one that,
the, from the
Thank you.
Hazard Young and Associates?
Associate superintendent that was put
Oh,
down.
this-
Hazard Young
Yeah.
Associates?
this says assistant
Assistant-
superintendent,
yeah,
not
assistant
associate.
superintendent.
Yeah, because Mr. Campos asked to change the title.
Oh.
Yeah,
So that's not one we worked on, it was HYA.
So that day when we made, and that's what I thought initially was a lot of the confusion. That, we shot down the associate title, but really not the job. And that's what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
job, and that's, this.
And
is
we didn't
what-
want to shoot down the job. We didn't want to shoot the job down. But we shot the job down, the job title down in September, at our September board meeting. And we had a special board meeting in the beginning of October to approve the title, the new title, Assistant Superintendent of Education Services, and the new job description. So that's, if that's where we're getting hung up, yes. We shot down the associate title and we remained with the assistant title.
And we never did, and we
the
never
salary.
did anything, we never discussed that position.
We did.
That's-
Oh, not in September, we did in October,
Well, not.
especially October 3rd.
So that's my point. It's looking at all of these and discussing them, because right now, this isn't even up for discussion. That right now is moot. There's nothing there, which we never gave it an opportunity to discuss. or to
What's
see
not,
that.
which one?
The associate.
Yeah,
Well, we,
no, okay, so.
now we're getting way too.
So, that job title,
Uh-huh.
right now, is before us with an assistant superintendent of ed services. What I'm saying is, this was never given any consideration to be a part of this conversation. That's my concern. So these two were brought forward with essentially eliminating this. And I would have liked to have had all of it laid out
And
and
that's,
have a discussion.
and that's what I brought up at the very beginning of this conversation is last week, when Dr. Rao came to us with this, we were all on board with this.
No.
So that's
Okay,
why-
so that was, I guess, a misunderstanding on my part.
Okay.
I thought we were looking at ideas and to compare. I didn't know these were superseding this. That's not what I thought we were doing.
Okay.
But I might have made.
I thought you understood that we approved this one 3 weeks ago. And we are essentially trying to break this apart so that we could focus on two major points in this one, but with two separate departments essentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously,
That's right.
if this was the one that was on the table, then we would just be approving this.
We did 3 weeks ago.
I know.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is we'd be approving it as the job description and then the potential to appoint. That's not where we're at.
Okay, well,
This is now gone.
no, it's not gone. This one we've had on the books for 3 weeks. If we say we don't want this, then we can appoint someone to this tonight.
Can we?
No, sorry, we'd have to have another, because we are gonna appoint for the pupil services. But we could come back next week and appoint someone to this position because it's still on the books. We have this,
And so, okay.
I mean, if that's what we wanna do.
So what I wanted was to be able to have this discussion next week, having all of the information. Because right now, in order to discuss this, you have to shoot this down to revert to this. And I wanted everything laid out. And that's why I was trying to delay the meeting so that we could have all that information spread out, discussed, and come to a consensus, and then go ahead and move forward with it.
Okay.
That's where, but now let me ask a quick question. So when this meeting was called, who called the meeting?
this meeting was approved by the board on Wednesday
Last week.
last week. And the board decided to bring those two job descriptions that I'm presenting to you right now the next day.
Yeah, remember, we were gonna come in back on Thursday, and
On
last week,
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, I could.
And that got postponed because somebody wanted the
Attorneys input.
lawyers to look through it.
Yeah, Mr.
And, which
Garcia.
was fine. And so I was told it might happen Monday, but then scheduling, it happens right now. So this meeting was actually supposed to be 6 days ago.
Right.
So.
So who called for this meeting? The board.
We did.
Yeah, you authorized me to do that.
So, and I guess I got confused because it was a meeting I wasn't gonna be able to attend. And that got kicked down the road to today.
Oh, in your mind, okay,
Okay,
yes.
probably that's what happened.
In your mind, you weren't gonna be able to make it, so that's.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know what was gonna go on
Okay.
next
Okay.
week. But now, okay, so just to confirm, was the attorney given this one or no? Which one is that?
What is that one?
The Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
It was before we voted on it 3 weeks ago.
I'm asking, was this given to?
It
you
was given to him before it was approved.
But what, but was it given to him when these? were-
Together, he already have it?
And did he cross-check? I just don't
I
know.
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, because he, well,
I don't think he did cross-reference, he just.
I
made
thought
sure
my
it was legit.
understanding on our conversation was that it was just these two, and I didn't know. And that's, again, that's where.
So
I
you're
wish everything would have been.
but we did it. Maribel Human Resources did it and make sure that everything that is in educational services, somebody's taking care of that, either curriculum instruction and innovation or pupil services. So the fundamental, all the duties assigned for educational services, if that is your concern, Mr. Campos, they are being taken care of. Divided by how Mr. Nelson explained,
Yeah, it's the
CII.
shifting
and
of-
the-
Right, right.
Yeah.
The shifting of the.
Exactly. So all of the duties are, I can guarantee to you that they are going to be taken care of
And all the duties you've been talking about shifting to Joe, those are all the duties that are in the new job
in the
description.
new job description.
The only thing that's changing is Ed Services is now becoming Pupil Services. That's the title is changing to
The
Pupil
title.
Services.
No
No
salary
salary
change
change,
at all.
and they're focusing,
Yeah,
Put that in there.
their focus is gonna be attendance and special education for the most part.
yes.
You know what, I think you're right, but I mean.
And we need somebody like you said yesterday.
We have the information here, I just,
You wanted some time to digest it?
well, no, I thought today's, but obviously it's there, this was gonna be first. And then, because this is the one that needs to take action to determine, if there's an appointment or not. But this can't be done without.
Yeah, we had to approve both of them essentially for this to work.
Right.
Otherwise, we revert back to Ed Services.
So, I think I guess have to think about it. I mean, I'm,
All right, good. Any more discussion? All right, you guys.
The job description that's attached doesn't have.
The what, I'm sorry? The what?
physical,
Oh,
which obviously for Joe doesn't matter, right? Because it would just be for whoever, because he's already in and can handle.
you're talking about this sheet right here?
Is there, Anna?
Yes.
Is there?
Yeah, it's,
Our legal counsel came back and said that was, he recommended for that to be added on there, so I wasn't able to switch it. I wasn't able to switch out the document since I had already posted yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Printed sheet, but not,
Yes, it's
just
on
not
the
on.
okay, so
Yeah.
so do you want me to make a
Motion.
amendment, a motion to amend that we approve this, not the file that's in, which includes the assistant, physical abilities sheet,
Yeah.
chart?
Sure.
Okay, so let me do that. I move to amend the job description to include this paper right here at the back of our handouts, which is for the physical abilities chart for this position, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Innovation Services. So I'm making the motion to amend it, if somebody would have to second that.
I second.
So now we're voting on the.
So now we're voting on the amended motion, yes, which is this paper right here, not the file that's in here because it doesn't include the last page.
It's just that paper.
It's just this last page is to be added to it.
Okay, so if we accept that, we still go back to the.
No, if we accept that, then it supersedes the previous motion. This is the one we accept, if we accept it.
This says the whole thing.
Weird, okay.
So they accept the chart, and then there is going to be another motion to accept the job description?
It's all in
Well,
one.
no, 'cause I made the motion to approve the entire thing.
entire- with
including-
that
Including
amendment.
this
Okay.
paper.
Okay, I missed.
Yes, not just this paper, I meant the entire, the thing.
Thank
when
you
now
for
it says As
clarifying.
presented, so this is the one as
I think
presented.
there was a confusion, Mr. President. So the motion is to approve the job description with amendment adding the last
This
page.
entire thing,
Yeah,
which includes this. The file does not include this paper,
Exactly.
that's all.
that was the motion.
So we would be voting to approve this.
And I find that strange that legal is saying that because it was the opposite in others.
Opposite of what? They
We-
didn't
the
want you
physi-
to include the,
Physical ability. That's why I'm finding it really weird.
Yes, and that is, yeah. But Adam, even last night, he called me, hey, this is not there. That was my decision. Well, that was my recommendation, that was my input. Any reason? He said, oh, no, it was, we can take care of that, and we added it.
okay, well, the amended motion is to include it, so that's, so we can vote whenever you're,
I said,
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't say.
Just for the amendment, but
No, this is for the entire thing, which includes this sheet.
yeah, the whole JD. Too much. Okay, for real. Item 4.1 is 3 yeses and 2 nos. So it passes. Okay, all right. Item 4.2, personnel consideration approval of job description for Assistant Superintendent Pupil Services.
So moved.
1 second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
So was this one, we have to make an amendment for this one as well? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to amend it to include this entire presentation, which includes this last page of job, hold on, what is the title exactly? Physical abilities for the Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Services. It is page 5 of 5 in this presentation, not included with the file, but I would like to include the entire thing.
That's one big
As
motion.
presented. That's what you had last time, so that's fine. I just need, I made the motion, someone would have to second for it to include it.
Second.
Okay. All right.
Any more discussion? All right, please vote.
I think we discussed ourselves out. We worked it all out.
Yeah, no. Oh, wow. Okay, item 4.2 passes 3-2. Item 5.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on closed session items only. Are there any public comments in closed sessions?
No public comments.
All right. Okay, so we're not going to closed session?
I'd make a motion to adjourn in closed session.
No, that's what I'm trying, I'm reading this to go to closed session.
Okay, well, it popped up here, so I don't know. 6.1 on your computer screen, if you want to read from that.
No, 5.1, invitation to address the Board of Trustees on closed session items only. I know we had the intent to go to closed session, and that's why I don't see it right here. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, because it's adjourned to closed session.
It's not on his paper.
Oh, it's not in his paper.
Wow. I was so tired thinking it said adjourn.
No, it is on there.
It is, yeah, okay.
Wow, I apologize.
Things happen, Mr. Garcia,
I'm talking
not a
so much,
problem.
It's been a long board.
It is a lot.
Yeah, item 6.1,
It's
do
8
I have a
o'clock
motion to
already.
adjourn to closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote. Item 6.1 passes 5-0, and we will be adjourning to closed session at 8:03 PM. All right, item 7.1, the special board meeting of the Paris Union High School District is reconvening at 9:19 PM. Item 8.1, report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. President. In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action to appoint Ms. Laura Collins as the Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Services, subject to her acceptance and a contract of employment to be considered at a subsequent board meeting by the following vote. Trustee Garcia, yes. Trustee Campos, yes. Trustee Stafford, yes. Trustee Nellison, yes. Trustee Vallejo, no. That could be it, sir. That's the only thing, yeah.
Item 9.1, adjournment, special board meeting of the Board of Trustees for October 23rd, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Nope, see none, please vote. passes 5-0. We are adjourned at 9:20 PM.